What's good? It's Woog. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's talk boxing. Ireland's Carl Frampton, the Jackal, versus the Filipino Flash, Nonito Donaire, for the vacant WBO interim featherweight title. That's 126 pounds. The current champs in this division are Leo Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr., Lee Selby, and Oscar Valdez. This one feels like a pretty easy one to call. I'd go with Frampton, mainly because he's closer to the prime of his career than Donaire is. This is Frampton's second fight after his narrow decision loss to Leo Santa Cruz in their rematch, which was the first loss of his career, and unless he's a shot fighter as a result of those two tough Santa Cruz fights, I expect him to be much faster and sharper than Donaire, who's won titles in 4 divisions and was once among the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world 5 to 7 years ago. Donaire really hasn't looked the same after his 2013 decision loss to Guillermo Rigondeaux than his 2014 knockout loss to Nicholas Walters when he moved up to the 126 featherweight weight class. He doesn't seem as light on his feet, he's slower defensively and takes more punches, and his hands don't seem as fast or as accurate and sharp. Now, these symptoms can just be a product of age, or it can be a physical deterioration caused by the physical and neurological wear and tear of the ring. I thought that he looked like a shot fighter versus Jesse Magdaleno in 2016, but in fairness, Magdaleno is still undefeated, so maybe he was just good enough to make Donaire look that bad. Donaire had his greatest successes at 118 and 122, then faced a devastating KO at 126 versus Walters. He then moved back down to 122 to regain his confidence and fight fighters closer to his size until losing that decision to Magdaleno. He then moved back up to 126, fought a lesser fighter, and now versus Frampton, he's once again fighting for the title at 126 featherweight. Some are looking at this fight and mentioning Frampton's small size for the division, which is true. He's only fought 3 times at 126. 2 were in that split versus Santa Cruz, both going the distance. He hasn't scored any knockouts at 126, and neither has Donaire, but Frampton looked good in those 2 fights versus one of the division's best, whereas Donaire has looked pretty bad. His great punching power doesn't seem to have carried up to 126, not to mention his chin so far proving unable to absorb punches from these bigger, stronger guys at 126. I give Donaire a little more than a puncher's chance in this one. Frampton has been the more active fighter and the better overall performer in recent years. I see Frampton and his quick feet stepping into the pocket and landing a lot of shots up the middle on Donaire, who I expect to look sluggish and lumbering, looking for some home run punches while getting hit cleanly until he's hurt and then the fight is eventually stopped. The Filipino Flash was a sensational talent, but I think that his style was such that when his athleticism slipped just a little, that his technical skills weren't enough to keep him ahead of the pack. I see him as more of a Roy Jones than a Bernard Hopkins in that regard. At this point, I just question how much Donaire still has in the tank, and he's not fighting just any fighter at this 126-pound weight that he hasn't done well in. He's fighting Carl Frampton in his hometown of Ireland, which is another factor, with the crowd's energy intensifying the reaction to Frampton's attacks. This can help sway the judges into giving some of the close rounds to Frampton in a little home cooking. But yeah, I've got Frampton winning by either TKO stoppage or by a lopsided decision if Donaire and his corner let the beating continue. This is a huge opportunity for Donaire, but I think that Frampton's going to perform well in this homecoming bout. But let me know your thoughts. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.